Well, I guess we could get started. Looks like the
Yeah.
recording has been started already. I was looking to do that, but I see that happened at 9:02, so we're good with that. And I guess I'll start it off. I'm Frank Witmer with Broudy Precision, and today I'm happy to have Carl with LumenRadio with us today to talk about the LumenRadio product, the W-BACnet device. So I guess I'll turn it over to you, Carl.
Yeah. Thank you, Frank. It's an honor talking with all your amazing customers. I think Frank and the Broudy team has been our most successful partner in helping system integrators and installers deploying wireless BACnet and really understanding the value our product brings. And I hope today to share some more light on how we do that. And I mean, with that said, Ian that just asked about Midsummer and Frank and the entire Broudy team is very well knowledgeable in our product. So you are in good hands talking with them regarding our products. And I hope today is more about a dialogue. Me and Frank have prepared, some conversation points to see just to get the brain started. But my intention is to not show too many slides, rather just, get going about the concept, what it's all about, to get your brains going on how we can help. And then me and Frank will sort of lead the dialogue if someone has questions and opportunities to discuss. So without further ado, I will share my screen and you let me know if you see it.
Yep, we got you.
Awesome. So I typically call this webinar, How to Make Wireless Control Your Superpower. And I would just briefly touch upon which challenges I've seen for 2024 and which I foresee continue doing. When and how wireless makes sense, cost calculation, how is our technology reliable? Because everybody works, why is your technology so reliable compared to everyone else? Wireless is scary. And then if we have time, we have a checklist, but I think it's more convenient that Frank and I talk about success factors, what Frank has been seeing with all your customers. But of course, you guys will get the checklist as well, so you have it when you start deploying project. So just touching upon challenges, I've had this slide now for half a year, but it seems to continue being true, maybe a bit reformulated, but what we saw in the beginning of 2024 and already 2023, newly built construction was significantly declining. And what happened was a lot of installers and jobs got moved to retrofits from being new builds instead. And that drove a lot of lack of skilled staff into the need for skilled staff within retrofits, how you actually upgrade a system. And why people were upgrading the system were mainly because the cost of energy remained very elevated. And also, especially in Northeast with your customers, it's also the states that have legislation on ESG and those kind of things. And even corporations, stock listed corporation having high demands on ESG traceability. And that drove demand for communication in building automation. But I mean, at the end of the day, the lack of skilled staff is what everybody's talking about. How can we get the jobs done that needs to be done? I don't know if anyone disagrees with that, but what I've heard, this is still the main challenge. How do we get the good people that we need to do the jobs? And I think we have what we believe is a solution for that. It's not how you get more people, but the people you have can do more jobs more effectively. And we have some examples of that. But just to be clear, as Frank said, our products, Broudy carry them, Broudy has stock on them, so you can always buy them there. Super convenient. It's called wireless BACnet. It replaces the BACnet MSTP cable. It's what we call the wall mount Pro, and the DIN rail. And soon you will also have DIN rail Pro. That is the same product as the wall mount Pro, but in the DIN rail form factor. So that's coming as well. But basically, in short, Pro versus a normal one is that you can have more MSTP devices trunked to your wireless device. But we will talk more about that later. So how can wireless help you? Me and Frank have 4 examples with us today, and I will talk first about one, and then Frank will mention one case, and then I will talk about 2 cases where I think it's the bread and butter cases, so to say, where basically the scale and the full potential of the wireless system comes into place. But to get it started, this use case, Ian knows a lot about it. He's been in the building. Basically, it's a massive old building in New York, just on the Hudson, and it's 2.3 million square feet to cover. And the base installation, which Ian helped them do, I think it's 2 years ago now, it was 50 BACnet units to cover all 18 floors. And the purpose of that was to collect LoRa temp sensors that goes into a LoRa gateway. That LoRa gateway spoke BACnet MSTP. So, and they use those temp sensors to control the environment in the building. So it's not going to a cloud only for monitoring. It was actually used in a control loop. So that's why it was the LoRa gateway had BACnet MSTP back to the Jace and Niagara. But the BACnet MSTP trunk was not able to drill through the 3 feet thick concrete wall. So they needed another wireless solution to bring that back in. And that's where they started with our devices. The funny thing is, I met them at Niagara Summit just a couple of months ago, and they told me they've expanded the same network. And that shows a really good use case where you start with one part of a trunk and build out a wireless network. And then you realize, oh, but on floor 17, we have a new tenant coming in and they want water leakage detection. It's only 5 points per tenant for one device. And you need that BACnet MSTP going back to the Jace. So they just expanded and expanded and expanded. So now it's our biggest operational installation today. I think we're around 60 to 70 units in the network. So I think it's a good example where you can expand a BACnet MSTP trunk over time. And of course, it's not recommended to have that big of an MSTP trunk on one trunk if you're doing full active control loop. But in this case, the requirement was once per hour for the temp sensors. So with lower requirements, you can have bigger networks. With fast requirements, you should have a smaller network. But we can come into that. But Frank, I want to give the floor to you because this is a case you've been working with.
Yeah, this one here is up in North Jersey, and it was a job that KF Mechanical had done, where they had rooftop air handling units that they needed to bring back into their system. And the challenge was that they had, they've got the MSTP controllers sitting up in their metal enclosures on the roof, and needed a way to be able to connect them all rather than spending a lot of money to have to run conduit and get it hardwired in, where they were able to go in and use the W-BACnet device. They put in a gateway in the center of the roof in the mechanical space with the Jace, and then they had the BACnet or the W-BACnet devices at each unit. And initially they had them installed inside the unit, and there were some issues with the wireless signal coming and going, which makes sense. It's sitting in a middle cabinet. They remote mounted the antennas, and everything's been running great from there. So they definitely reduced their installation costs by going this route instead of trying to run conduit and having to go down, below the roof, across, and back up at each of these units. And it's been going very well for them.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing this, Frank. And I think it's just a great example of where we see a lot of installations where this is happening, where you have, let's say, between 2 and 10 rooftop units that sits in a not so nice place. And what I really like with this story, even though it was not successful immediately because it was their first installation, and it's a lot of, radio things that might be tricky in the beginning, but Frank was there to help. Just mention it's a metal cabinet, you need to get the signal out of it, and then it was fine. So I think that's good, and I'm glad you shared also the challenges, because a first installation will always be some new things to figure out, but it's usually very easily overcome, and it's nice that we have the team Broudy that helps you along the first installation. And then, well, what do you say, Frank? Do you get any callbacks after the first job?
Yeah.
It's a leading question. It's a quite easy system where you have the first job where you always need some hand holding, and then it's that. And here I think the next one I'm bringing up here, we have a school with Broudy that will be installed this summer, that we will do a use case of. But until then, I'm using a Swedish example because I think it's quite nice, because you have a stat or a room controller or whatever you call it that is a BACnet MSTP, and you have it in mostly all the classrooms and all the teacher rooms, and you're doing this ESG upgrade or energy renovation where you swap all the room controllers to be communicative, talk BACnet instead. So you can have scheduling, you can have smarter stuff to save energy and those kind of things. Hotel rooms is the same story, also stats doing this. And this is just an example where you had 126 room controllers spread out across this 3-story building. It's a middle school in Sweden, and it works quite great to have many wireless BACnet networks in the same building. So basically this is 5 BACnet trunks. So it's roughly 25 room controllers on every trunk, and you spread them equally across the building. And one of the important factors was that they can do these renovations with no disruption of the school. So they can take one classroom or one teacher room at a time. You don't have to drill through walls. There's no disturbances. And when these guys are doing hotel rooms now, it's quite interesting because they only do the room when the cleaning is doing them. So there's no other disruption than one room when the cleaning is done. And then they take a couple of rooms. So for the installer, it might be a bit messy, but overall, it's a very flexible installation for the property owner and the system integrator. And I just have one final example I would like to share. And here I would like also to share how you as a system integrator and a property owner can get a validation that everything works. And this is the National Museum of Poland in Warsaw. So it's a very old building with very thick brick walls or concrete walls, just as the Starrett Lay building in New York. And here they had the VAVs that controls the rooms where all the paintings are. So it's a quite critical VAV that get the right air with the right moisture in the room. And they had already worked with our OEM partner Prodal with temperature sensors. So they were used to working with wireless with the Prodal Proxima system. Therefore they said, okay, we need to control the VAVs. Let's go for wireless Modbus in this installation then. And they installed for the 12 VAVs. And as you can see, it's one more device, and it's red here on the map. And that's because over these 600 feet long building, they needed at one place one repeater. And you can see that in the signal strength here, that some of them had a weaker signal, so they had to expand that with an extra repeater. And that's why it turned up, because there's no Modbus or BACnet communication on this specific node. So, but I was thinking, Frank, I know you said you put your gateway into Bluetooth mode. Is your mobile app ready so we can show live how it looks?
Yeah, we can. I was going to also mention another use case we had. I actually got to visit a site about a month ago where they had a parking lot gate at their building, and they needed a way to control it. And they had a controller in that part of the building, which was fairly close to where it is, maybe 150, 200 feet away. They didn't want to run conduit out there or anything to control it. So they threw in the W-BACnet out in the gate control panel, which was a really old, heavy gauge steel panel. And I knew right away why they were having issues, but they had put that in there, and they had the gateway out back in the building. And once you open the panel door, it worked great. And then you close the panel door, you lost the signal. So obviously the easy way around that was to, put in an external antenna on the outside of the box, and everything's fine. But the one thing I got out of going for that visit was that it's the first I really got to use the app on an actual site, especially a site that was having signal issues. And this was where, I got a lot of hands-on with it. And what I'll do first is, well, with what I'll do, I guess I should share my screen. Share.
Thanks for sharing that story. It's so nice to hear, because typically what you're saying, Frank, is the mobile app, it's really well used when you see issues. And on a site, sometimes you will have issues with 1 or 2 devices, and that's where I think it's very handy with the mobile app.
Right. Yeah, definitely. So what I've done, I've got the mobile app sitting here. Oh, my phone went. There we go. All right. So I've got the mobile app up, and to work with this app, we have to put the device, the node or the gateway, into the Bluetooth mode, which is super simple. It's just a 3-tap on the push button, and you know you've done it when you see the LEDs go out and the center LED blue blinks. So now I'm in that mode, and now if I do scan again, we should find our gateway. So right away, what we see is I called it gateway. So you can go in on any of these devices and rename my phone. You can tap on gateway on that pencil, and you can rename it if you'd like. And you'll see below that, well, above that, we have the firmware. So whatever device you put in the Bluetooth mode and you bring up in the app, it's going to tell you what the firmware version is. So it's a great way of seeing what version you're running. So this being a gateway, you'll see we have 5 wireless devices. So it's this W-BACnet gateway sees 5 nodes out there, and across those 5 nodes, we've got 8 devices. It's a quick summary of what it's got, showing that the latest version is already installed. If it was not, basically the app is going to go out to the cloud and find out what the latest version is, compare it to the gateway, and if it's not the right version, the latest version, you can update the firmware from here. But one of the real nice features is if once the gateway's up at the latest version, it's going to look out at all the nodes and determine what their versions are that are running there, what their firmware version is, and it will actually push the update out to those devices. So if you added another device to the network and expanded it, the gateway will look and see if it's the latest version or not and push it out to it. So that's a great feature in there. And then the other is if I tap down on network map, it gives us a map of what the mesh is, how the mesh is set up, where the hops are going through. And in this case here, the magenta, that's the gateway. It's W-BACnet gateway. Then you have, I named each of the nodes, obviously different names. The first one there is, I called it FX. And if you click on the node on my phone, it comes up and tells me I've got 4 devices connected. And it gives you what the MAC address is of the connected devices to each node. And you'll notice the yellow hexagon next to the RS-45 piece right here. The yellow is telling us that we have a problem. It's not saying it's down on the MSTP side, but it's telling us that there's an issue. So if I were to touch that area, it comes up and tells us what the problem is. Right away, it says, hey, dummy, you've got 2 controllers with the same MAC address. And it even points out which node they are on. So super simple way of troubleshooting. And I purposely made those the same number to show this. I
because Frank, you're flawless. You're always flawless. You never accidentally set the dip switches on the same MAC ID. No, that never happens to you.
That never happens. Actually, it did happen the first time I set this up because I just took different controllers to try to set things up and see how they work. Yeah. But what you'll see though is next to FX is telling us that our signal we're at 100%. So we got a great signal. It's green. Actually, it's the first time I think I've had all of them show green. And of course, because we're doing a demo, you want to show yellow and red. But in any case, if I go down to the Spider one, this is a W-BACnet node, I should say the FX one is a Pro model because it has 4 devices. The rest of them are not the Pro model, so they each support 1 MSTP device. So if we go in and we look at the next one down, shows us our MAC address. The RS-45 is in good shape. It's green. We go back down to the next one, and that's where the other address 20 is. So again, if I click on that RS-45, it comes up and gives us, tells us what the issue is. And then I have another device here, electric panel. This actually has no devices wired to it. So it's showing that the MSTP trunk is down, and obviously there's no address for it to show. And then the last one is the DIN model that I've got connected up with one controller, and it's showing its MSTP is in great shape as well.
Frank, what happens if you press the red RS-485?
I'll get a little more information and suggestions on what the issue could be. Obviously an easy one that you see all the time is polarities backwards. So it's reminding you of that. It's having you check your baud rate and your parity and stop bits. They're dip switch settings that you have right on the W-BACnet device. So they're the things you would look at first. And then if you wanted to, you could press on help, and it gives you links to go to their documentation, to go to their videos, get the app. All that is part of this too. So if I say done on that, we go back, and there's our network. And then the last piece on there is we have the generate PDF. And this gives us a report where you can enter information about the project, company, all optional information. And then you can go in and sort it based on the wireless node name that we gave it or the BACnet IDs. And then if we go to generate, and I think if I go to share, I think it comes, there it is there. I don't know if, trying to think if I have, okay, there we go, open. Will let me, oh, generate, share. Maybe that's where it was that I was able to.
So that is a bit inconsistent on the iPhone. It says open, but it actually saves on that location where you actually did. So if you then go into files and into that location, you will see the PDF report.
Oh, now you're going to make me go to files on my phone.
No. Because I think like you guys already saw on the call earlier. So if you're re-watching this recording, you can just go back to the National Museum of Poland, and then you see the PDF.
Yeah, on the bottom of the screen, right? I did see that there. But then basically what it's given you a PDF of what you see here with the network node expanded out with all the data on it is what you get from that. And then also you have the information there at the top that tells you the 0 to 100% is the ETX.
Yeah, it's our LumenRadio version of packet delivery rate. So we're planning on saying it better in the next version of the app, because ETX doesn't say anyone else outside LumenRadio something. But to simplify, it's from 0 to 100% packet delivery rate. And you should have somewhere above 90%. And it actually color codes for you. So if you look on the color, it probably says you more than the percentage. But of course, 100% is good. Yeah.
Oh, there you'll see now, I brought it back up. It did change the mesh. So you can see on the fly, it's always going to move around and try to get the best way to the best path to go back to the gateway.
Yeah. And I think like I don't even have to show the mesh slide, because now I see we only have 4 more minutes, and I don't want to take too much up of time. But seeing is believing, so that's why we like showing you the app, how it works, and those kind of things. But in short, I will just go through some really fast slides now on cost calculation, and then if we have time, also say why does it work in the way it works. But I like to show this slide because to give you guys some flavor of how does people save time. I mean, one of those things is the planner that does the job. You know, hassle-free quoting is one of these things we've heard from customers where basically they don't have to know if there's a BACnet MSTP trunk or not in the building, because you just put them out where it makes sense and you have no variation in the cabling time. You know, one room takes 1 hour, that's it, boom, next. And then for the installer, that means you save a lot of time on the boring stuff, drilling and pulling wires. Of course, some installers will say, well, then I have less job. Well, you can take more jobs. And retrofits is high demand, so it doesn't. And remember, everyone says it's hard to have skilled installers. Now they can do more jobs. It's that simple for them. And as you saw with Frank, the system integrator, you get your faster troubleshooting. You can hand over a project easier to a real estate and building owner and a property owner. And of course, the property owner saves money in the project overall, but it's also the threshold of doing a project. I mean, with a BACnet router that goes from MSTP to IP next to our gateway, suddenly you could cloud connect it to a cloud system. You don't have to have a Jace in every retail store, for example, and then you can collect many retail stores into one net, for example, one Jace in the campus area, so to say. So that could be one way of getting that single rooftop unit that has been offline for the past 20 years. And this is just an example of how you save so much time on the installer. This is, a rough estimation of, what would it cost and how much would you save. But and it's, for some people, quite obvious that it's the installer time that it's the most visible time saver. But remember, the planner spends less time. The system integrator spends less time. Everybody spends less time on projects when this. And I know we have 2 more minutes and I won't have time to question, but why it works, what's our secret? And I think Frank and Ian and the Broudy team would love to tell you more about this, how it works. But in short, we're big in entertainment lighting. We have world monopoly basically on wireless DMX for controlling these lights, these big lights. And it took off at Coachella 2012. We've been in the lightsabers, that's our most claim to fame. We're in Super Bowl, Eurovision Song Contest, all the big live shows. So there we're really a big brand. And why we work on 2.4 gigahertz is because our founder made a really nice patent called cognitive coexistence. And here you immediately see difference between Zigbee and our technology. Zigbee is this small dark red area where when you do the installation, it's fine, and then you start the building and you had to come back and change the Zigbee channels. That's what our patent does. It's hopping in real time. I mean, you saw it with Frank. Like, the mesh is changing in real time, finding the right path, and also finding which frequencies is available. And that's where we are. And that's our patent we've had since 2008. So it's a strong patent that makes our technology work when no one else does. And it also gives us the opportunity to have a much higher output power. And yeah, as I mentioned, and as you saw real time in Frank's app, it's meshing. So it's self-healing, finding the best path at all times. And we're in Honeywell Connected Power, for example, a product that I saw Matt just published on YouTube. I think it was yesterday, explaining. So Honeywell trusts us and a lot of other European brands as well as Prolon. So we're out there. Our technology have been there for quite some time. And I think I will stop now because I see the time is running out. So I will give the floor to Frank and anyone that has any questions. And thank you all that needs to go for listening, but I'm still here for some time if you have questions, comments, discussion.
Thanks, Carl. It was great. Yeah, if anybody has any questions, they can unmute themselves and ask or chat, through chat or whichever. If you've got anything, please, questions or comments. We say we did so good. There aren't any, or you.
I think your showcase of the app was really good. I'm thankful that you did all the common issues that you see in an installation with the same MAC ID and RS-485 polarity typically wrong, or when it's a repeater and you need to see that.
Right.
Let's see if we have anything more on the chat. No.
Yeah, nothing on the chat at all.
Then we can give a question to the audience. Maybe you can raise your hand or give a thumbs up or anything. Who of you wants to try this now in a new project? Or do you see any project you have, let's say in the next 6 months, where you think this might be helpful? I see one thumb up. Frank,
I did it just to get the ball rolling.
I see Sam also thinks this is helpful. Thank you, Sam. Awesome. Well, I hope all of you others listening in see some value in it as well. And I mean, feel free. Yeah, I see Riley raising your hand as well. Thank you. Yeah, I really hope you guys take your time and reach out to the Broudy team and start talking about these projects, because I think you will save time and I think you will like the products.
Yes. Okay. Well, great. Thank you very much, Carl. We really appreciate you and the time you've spent with us on this. And everybody, thank you for attending, and we do appreciate all of our customers and everything you do. And if you have any questions or comments, please reach out to us, whether it's our engineering group or the salespeople. We're here to help. So with that, thank you, and see you next time. Thanks, Carl.
Thank you.